So imagine this. You're on a vacation with your father in Arizona. You've come out from Massachusetts and you want nothing more than to be with your dad and just enjoy your time together because you recently got laid off. You're out there taking pictures of the night sky when all of a sudden a bat is right in your face. You start waving your arms frantically and you start screaming, and all of a sudden that bat uses its echolocation and sees your open mouth as one of its caves and takes a flight into your mouth. This actually happened to Erica Kahn. She's out there with her dad. I cannot imagine having a bat in my mouth, but I remember that when I was in 6th grade, Ozzy Osbourne had this rumor that supposedly he had bitten the head off of a bat. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, we recently lost Ozzy Osbourne.
And we kind of heard and saw some bats flying around. I never would have thought that one would fly into my face.
So anyway, Erica has this bat in her mouth. She joked that it tasted earthy and a little sweet, right?
I'm not sure what part of the bat was there, but there was definitely I got a taste of it.
But her dad was a doctor and said, listen, I understand that the bat didn't bite you, but either way, you still have to go to the hospital immediately. You're gonna have to get a set or a couple of rounds of rabies shots. So she goes to the hospital and then kind of fesses up to her dad and the hospital that she doesn't have insurance.
I was traveling, so I went to 4 different hospitals over the course of my 4 rabies shots. So now I have my close to $21,000 bill.
When she lost her job, she slowly but surely lost her insurance benefits and didn't really have the extra funds to sign up for the COBRA plan.
I took a gamble and I'm really, kicking myself now, and I've learned I'll never do that again. But COBRA is expensive, but it's more expensive to get these, $20,000 bills.
As many of you guys know, when you lose your job and you lose your benefits, a lot of times if you're willing to pay the COBRA, you can keep your benefits that you had on the job. The only problem is, from what I understand, those COBRA plans are incredibly expensive because you don't get the discount that you normally got when you were employed. God, the COBRA plan sounds like a nightmare. So anyway, she didn't do the COBRA plan. Here's a question I have for you guys. I was always under the impression that if I was ever without a job, I could either take the COBRA plan to continue my plan with the employer, right? Or you could actually go to the marketplace and get something. I guess the weird thing is, here in Arizona, I think if you're unemployed, I think you can actually get approved for like our local access plan. So this might just be happening primarily because she's from Massachusetts, because she had to get 4 separate shots. And check this out. She didn't have insurance, so she was trying to save money, right? Or because she was trying to save money, she ended up getting a $20,000 bill. Now, is that just a nightmare? Is that a future story that she can tell nieces and nephews? Well, she's gonna be telling that story because it's a true one, and that is a nightmare. I guess the interesting thing is, she's got a hell of a story to share with people for the rest of her life. The one thing that didn't make sense to me was that I'm hoping that her dad helped her with the bill, because they said he was a doctor. And I know sometimes you can have like a doctor, get a doctorate in English or, whatever your subject that you studied in college is, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be a medical doctor. But still, you figure he would have kind of stayed on top of helping his daughter financially. Sometimes when people are financially embarrassed, they'll actually kind of hide in a shell and be secretive and not tell their family members, right? Because if your dad's a doctor and, probably always has the best insurance, probably has money saved up, right? And all of a sudden you're broke, I could see somebody actually thinking to themselves strategically, I'm just gonna avoid getting sick. and then out of embarrassment not wanting to admit it to her dad. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Bats are really interesting because supposedly there's just an amazing amount of bats. Some of them look like little puppy dog faces, right? Others look kind of like little demonic little faces. And they've got a whole bunch of other shapes and sizes and varieties. I even saw a video once where they were showing gigantic ones that were, you know, kind of like the size of chihuahuas and stuff. And then they had like really long wingspans. It's a very odd creature. But when they do show one of those puppy dog ones eating a banana, you can't help but think, you know, I want one of those. That's what girls always do, right? You see anything cute and you're like, I want one of those. This is the chinchilla. It doesn't sleep at night. It stays up all hours like a boyfriend on methamphetamines. And they're like, I want one. I want one. What color chinchilla would you like? Gray or brown? No, I want the boyfriend on meth. Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. I've met some girls through the year, or through the years. God, that'd be sad if you met some girls through the year that were like, I want a guy on meth. But I've met some girls through the years that, God, they acted like their boyfriends who were on meth were just the most important thing in the world. And I'm like, they're a zombie. You have lost them. If there's one drug that your daughter's boyfriend could be on that you're just like, you throw your hands in the air and you say, run, it's hopeless, it's meth. Am I right? Meth is just such a tragedy. And everybody that's on it, they get to the point where you can't trust them. I mean, if you leave anything out, it gets stolen mysteriously. And yeah, as horrible as it sounds, the best thing you can probably do is run. That's why if anybody's gonna have a problem with that drug, you're hoping it's like not somebody directly that you're related to. Because if you woke up one day to find out your son or daughter was addicted to that drug, oh my God. The only thing worse that I can see is fentanyl. And the only reason I even see the effects of fentanyl is because as you drive around town, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, you'll see people and it looks like they're bent over to tie their shoes. And the reality is they're just wasted on drugs. It used to be that the people on heroin, you would see them occasionally as you drove through a kind of sketchy part of town, and they would look like they were literally upstanding, yet they were kind of asleep, right? And people would always marvel and joke, it's amazing they don't fall over. With fentanyl, it takes it a step further. It kind of breaks their spine because they start to look like they have really painful necks and spines. So that same person that used to stand upright and be 3/4 asleep, now they're that same way, but they're literally bent over at the waist and their head is like 1 inch from touching their feet. It's the craziest thing. And then what's really sad, I saw a couple videos where they were talking to people out there in Kensington. I think Kensington is like, I don't know, it's kind of like the horrible place in the country for people that are on these hardcore drugs, right? And they were talking to them and they just said, look, it just feels better to be bent over, you know, and take it up the ass in the game called life. They just freaking, you know, they can't stand up straight without it hurting their back. How miserable is that? That's what's so crazy about drugs. People do it for the euphoria, right? But the euphoria literally makes their life away from drugs a living hell. Could you imagine in the next 30 or 40 years, you're gonna see some people that are completely off drugs, but they've got horrendous neck and back problems because of the drugs they did back in their 20s and 30s. That's what's gonna happen in the future. Oh my God, there's gonna be so many people that are permanently on pain pills and stuff. Ugh. Ask Ronnie, 7506, says, this is so unfair. Cobra is an arm and a leg, like literally $1,000 a month. So not taking the insurance is understandable. You know, here's the horrible thing. This person, Ronnie, is right. Because let's be honest, if you're in your 20s or 30s and you've never been sick in your life, you're thinking, hey, I'm gonna catch on with a good employer who's gonna offer benefits. I don't have $1,000 a month to dish out for insurance that I don't need because I'm healthy. And nobody expected a bat to fly into her mouth, you know? Here's the crazy thing. Her dad's a doctor. He says, I don't care if the bat didn't bite you. We're talking about rabies here. Once rabies is in you, it's too late. So she had no choice but to go to the hospital. But if her dad wouldn't have been there, here's what's so sad about when you're tight with money, or not tight, but when life is just beating you up, fiscally speaking, right? And you're broke, there are people that would have said, that bat did not bite me. I'm not going to the hospital. Isn't that crazy? That's what's so scary. People don't realize how risky they are. As a matter of fact, she seemed so jolly about it. I'd be willing to bet her dad probably decided to pay that $20,000 for her. A lot of times you'll find out that really successful men in life, and I'm sure there's some women too, but I'm just describing what I think of the typical father that's a doctor. They probably have $1 million home that's already paid for. They probably have millions of dollars in their investment accounts and portfolios, right? And then on top of that, they probably have 200 or 300 grand in the church and the local, or not the church, the bank and the local credit union. A lot of people have a lot of money. It's crazy how successful some people are. And I'm telling you, she probably just said, Dad, I thought I could go the year without needing health insurance. Jesse, you sound like you need health insurance now. Well, I've got health insurance, but it's still 110 degrees out here, gang. It's hot as hell. By the way, officially doing my upload. So if you guys don't mind, today is Sunday that you're watching this video now. Go take a look at React with Jesse and maybe watch my next video. Oh. Almost had two people crashing here. Anyway, I'm doing my reaction channel. If you guys want to go over there and subscribe, you can. Rumor has it, whoever subscribes first gets like 7 years of good luck. It's just a rumor. At Dennis Gwynn says, why doesn't her doctor dad help her financially? Why does she have a GoFundMe? You know, there is something that is kind of embarrassing about that. If the dad agreed to help her and then said, but you need to start up a GoFundMe, see if you can raise some money to pay me back, then that's understandable. But again, if the dad does have millions of dollars and he's not willing to help his daughter, then shame on dad. Shame on dad. It's really a tough deal though, because put yourself in the dad's place. Let's say you do have a little saved up and your daughter didn't think to get insurance and this happens. I could totally see a dad saying, I don't want to pay for that shit. But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, when you're somebody's father, what else is there to do but to help your kids? I mean that seriously. You're going to get old one day and pass on, and more than likely you're going to have 5, 6, 7 figures in the bank. All that money could have been used while you were alive to help your family through tough times. So my thinking is, you know, what the hell else does a person make money for other than to help their family? Boo, Jesse. Boo, that sounds communistic. No, communists are about turning away their family for the betterment of the state. I'm pro-family. I want to help my kids. If anything ever happens to my kids and they absolutely need me, I'm going to be there for them, and I know you guys are too. Tom Cruise says it tasted a little earthy and a little bit sweet, if you're wondering.
And it tastes a little earthy, a little sweet, if you're wondering.
Luckily, that thing didn't bite her. And imagine if it would have. Even if you get to the hospital in time for the round of rabies shots, it's not like you want to go through that. How miserable is that? Holy moly. At the Bug Generator says the real headline is the cost of the treatment. Guys, 4 shots should never ever cost $20,000. Can we all agree on that? If you agree with me that 4 shots should never cost a human being in America $20,000 out of pocket, I don't know, hit the thumbs up button. How about that? Tania of Earth says $20,000 for rabies shots is insane. Those costs only a few dollars to produce, which is probably true. Americans have gotten so used to getting ripped off. I know. That's one of those where it's like, wouldn't it be cool if a doctor pulled you off to the side and said, hey, I'm going to give you these treatments. It's going to be on the house. No one has to know. That would be so cool. BKM 2797 says, for freaking shots, it costs $20,000. Our healthcare is 100% broken. Nowhere but here in the US is it so ridiculous. You know, you guys on the left are starting to bring me around. I'm not a big fan of free healthcare because I think that ultimately leads to everybody getting bad service. But there is something really cruel about these shots costing $20,000. That's why I'm coming. You know, that's the thing you got to remember as people. We're not really left. We're not really right. What we are is a work in progress. And sometimes you have to see things for what they are. Just like I said the other day, that I don't think because you're Democrat that you necessarily are pro-crime, right? Like I think Democrats should be tougher on crime, right? But at the same time, I think Republicans, I think we should look at this and say, something is broken within our healthcare system. We need to do better than just, you know, we're not going to have Obamacare. We need to come up with some sort of real plan so that when people do pay cash out of pocket, I mean, this is something that should have cost $2,000. And let's be honest, if the average American only has about $400 to their name, then even $2,000 is going to be really tough for the average American to come up with. So I just feel like there's something that needs to be done. Here's the one thing. If that goes to collections, you can actually usually set up a payment plan. And as long as you stick to the payment plan, from what I understand, they're pretty reasonable. Otherwise, you know, shit, you got to start thinking about bankruptcy and stuff because of a health bill. How crappy is that? Anyway, you know, most of us aren't going to have an emergency where we need to get rabies shots, but most of us are going to have to deal with healthcare issues as we get older. So my thinking is, why don't we continue doing exactly what we've been doing, Venters, which is walking daily, drinking a lot of water and staying hydrated, and avoiding the sugar, right? If we can do those 3 things consistently, then 2025 and 2026 are going to be really good years for us health-wise. So remember, the best way to stay away from health bills is not to ditch out on insurance. It's to keep yourself healthy for as long as you can. Can I get an amen for once? Anyway, guys, thanks for walking with me. Check out my other channel, React with Jesse. I'm going to put up the first video Sunday afternoon at like, I don't know, 6 Eastern. Anyway, thank you guys for always walking with me. The walk must go on, right, Sean and Mala? I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.